Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie, and it looks like we might be getting a Star Wars-style what-if series exploring different scenarios, different timelines, based on the movies, the other shows, in different parts of the timeline. A lot of you have been theorizing that they do something like this for a while, so we'll break it all down, and my top 10 Star Wars what-if scenarios for them to explore right now. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. We have X-Men 97 episodes. There's a couple Star Wars series that'll be happening this year too, like Star Wars Skeleton Crew, which is connected to the Mandalorian and all those shows, and the Star Wars Acolyte series. But they didn't list a release date for this Star Wars What If series or whether or not it'd be live action or animated. My assumption is animated, just like the Marvel What If series, just because the stuff you're dealing with, like you want to do really, really big stories, and it's harder to do that in live action. Like the budget would have to be $1 billion. The funny thing too, a lot of you longtime Star Wars comic book readers from back in the Expanded Universe era, now called the Legends era, will remember that Star Wars has already done What If series a couple different times. They just called it something different. They even legitimately base some of their video games on the whole what-if concept. The whole premise of The Force Unleashed and the Starkiller character, Sam Witwer's character, is based on a what-if scenario. Is essentially an alternate timeline for Star Wars that starts after the end of Revenge of the Sith and Order 66. Basically, after the events of Order 66, you have the Great Jedi Purge, where Darth Vader starts going around the galaxy with the new Imperial Army, the now Stormtroopers, they're still clone troopers, just in Stormtrooper-looking armor, beginning to kill all the Jedi that he can find around the galaxy. In one of his early engagements, he goes to Kashyyyk looking for more Jedi to kill, and winds up killing Galen Merrick's father in a lightsaber battle, then finds him, learns that he's Force-sensitive, and decides to train him as his apprentice, basically becoming what would eventually turn into the Inquisitors, like the prototype for Inquisitors. But because when they introduced the Starkiller character a long time ago, they hadn't created the concept of Inquisitors in the Star Wars universe yet, so Sam Witwer talks about this whole phenomenon.
Discuss the concept of Starkiller as an Inquisitor, like his potential role and how it would fit into canon. Well, I know that Dave at one point, when he was doing Star Wars Rebels, thought about including him as an Inquisitor, as the son of a Jedi, and that he in the Inquisitorius had a personal connection with Vader. That maybe he was an Inquisitor that Vader was secretly training on the side as an apprentice.
Essentially, Starkiller was the first Inquisitor before the Inquisitors existed. There were the Star Wars Infinite comic book series, like a lot of Dark Horse comics dealt with the what-if concept in different ways. Star Wars Infinite was a trilogy of stories based on what-if scenarios for the original trilogy of movies. A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, like what if things had gone down very differently? There was even an official Lucasfilm comic book crossover between Indiana Jones and Star Wars where Indiana Jones discovers the Millennium Falcon. It was super dark too. There was even an 8-part miniseries called The Star Wars, which was another alternate timeline retelling of the entire saga based on George Lucas's original rough draft for the script for Star Wars, which they had found in the Lucasfilm archives while researching other projects. And in George Lucas's original rough draft for Star Wars, all the characters were very different, like all the names were different, whole plot details, secondary characters were very different, like it felt like a completely different type of series, which they based this whole mini-series on. So Star Wars is not new to the whole what-if concept. It's just that the closest they've gotten to doing that in video form is the actual video games, like the Force Unleashed games. Right now, my top 10 Star Wars what-if scenarios are, what if Anakin Skywalker had the high ground? This is a pretty obvious one. Killed Obi-Wan Kenobi on Mustafar. They actually did this in an alternate ending timeline during the Revenge of the Sith video game adaptation of the movie back when that came out on PS2, where Anakin kills Obi-Wan, eventually kills the Emperor, becoming Emperor himself. And it's still a pretty dark ending, like he doesn't turn back to the light side, he just becomes Emperor.
No, the galaxy belongs to me.
What if Ahsoka never left the Jedi Order and never left Anakin's side? She often blames herself in present day for Anakin's fall to the dark side, like it weighs heavily on her because he'd been so isolated in his final years before Order 66 happened, leaving him way more vulnerable to the Emperor's psychological manipulation. So the idea is that had Ahsoka stayed by his side, it's implied he never would have fallen to the dark side. They would have been able to prevent Order 66, prevent the Empire from rising, preventing Padme from dying, meaning Anakin would have also been alive to raise Luke and Leia with Padme as a traditional family. What if Darth Vader survived the events of Return of the Jedi after his redemption? So the idea is after gaining the trust of the rebellion in that period right before the Mandalorian picks up Mon Mothma, Leia, the eventual ruling Senate, and the New Republic, he would have probably been a much more effective commander, helping them root out the rest of the Imperial remnant much, much quicker so that the Shadow Council never rises, Thrawn never becomes the threat that he does in present day right now. The whole First Order would have been destroyed before they could finish their experiments in cloning the Emperor, so the Emperor would have stayed dead, and they wouldn't have been able to create their new fleet, and they would have been able to destroy Exegol, that Sith planet. What if Mace Windu survived the fall? This would pay off probably one of the longest running theories in the fandom, that he's still alive out there somewhere. You have him return during the events of the Mandalorian timeline to help them fight Thrawn, the Nightsisters, give Grogu some more Force teachings. What if Ben Solo never fell to the dark side? Luke Skywalker would have never tried to kill him at his Jedi Academy on Ossus. It would have never led to him seeking out Snoke, the First Order, helping their rise. He would have never fought Luke later, leading to Luke's death. What if Grogu had chosen Yoda's lightsaber instead of the Mandalorian's Beskar chainmail shirt, going back with him? Essentially, what if Grogu had stayed with Luke Skywalker and become his first real apprentice? Even though in reality he left Luke, I still think that Grogu will become just as powerful, if not more powerful than Yoda someday, even without all that training at Luke's academy. But he would have become way more powerful, way faster, and then you think about what happened with Kylo Ren, the Knights of Ren, coming back to kill all the students at the academy. Would this mean that Grogu would have also been killed by the Knights of Ren? So isn't it a little bit better that Grogu did eventually leave Luke Skywalker? What if Ahsoka followed Anakin Skywalker to the dark side of the Force? This is essentially what if Ahsoka became a Sith, just like Anakin. She would have become a special Inquisitor working with him. They would have been powerful enough to find and kill Obi-Wan Kenobi. Also, Ahsoka was instrumental in helping the fledgling rebellion rise during the dark times before A New Hope. That's why she was called Fulcrum, like she helped with their communications early on. Meaning that if she hadn't been doing that, the rebellion wouldn't have been able to come together fast enough. Darth Vader, his new Sith apprentice, Ahsoka, the Emperor, would have crushed them. What if Obi-Wan had a child with Duchess Satine? During the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, they had teasers for another Kenobi being out there. He said he had a family who were still alive out somewhere in the galaxy. They could always explore that in a future series, but despite all the fan theories about him having a potential child with Duchess Satine, like them actually having a real relationship, most of the things that the Star Wars people have said have actually thrown some water on this idea. But I don't think that anybody from Lucasfilm, like Dave Filoni or anybody official, has ever come out and said, no, absolutely not. There's no way that Obi-Wan Kenobi ever had any children. What if Padme survived Revenge of the Sith and raised Luke and Leia herself? She would have been around to not only guide them, but also help lead the rebellion and help it form way faster. And because the Emperor wouldn't have been able to lie to Darth Vader and twist him even darker with the idea that he killed Padme and the twins himself, it would have been way easier for Padme to help turn him back to the light side before the events of A New Hope. And probably my number one what-if scenario for them to explore would be what if Darth Vader took an apprentice, which is basically them doing Starkiller with Sam Witwer. During those games, there were even a couple what-if scenarios like alternate timelines depending on the choices you made. So there was a light side ending and a dark side ending depending on who you kill at the end. Either Darth Vader or the Emperor. Really just want to see Starkiller at some point show up in some of the TV shows or the movies somewhere. As far as I know, though, this What If Star Wars series is just in development. It doesn't mean it'll actually wind up getting made. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff like movies, TV shows that are in development that will probably never see the light of day. The ground is littered with the bones of Star Wars movies that Lucasfilm announced but never wound up making. Probably the closest thing to like another anthology type of series that they've done recently, especially in animation, is the Star Wars Vision series or even Tales of the Jedi. Tales of the Jedi felt like it could have been a really cool what-if series, but it's all meant to be canon stories. That's the only real difference, is that it's all stuff that happened to different characters in different parts of the timeline. So hopefully in future seasons of Tales of the Jedi, we'll actually see some brand new characters that they're introducing on The Mandalorian.
Then you must be General Baylan Skoll of the Jedi Order.
I parted ways with the Jedi long ago.
Really good example is Baylan Skoll. Wouldn't you like to see a young version of Baylan Skoll when he was still part of the Jedi Order during Tales of the Jedi? Speaking of which, we are supposed to get Tales of the Jedi Season 2 later this year, but I don't know exactly when that's going to air. I believe that the Star Wars Skeleton Crew series with Jude Law is going to be the next live-action series to air. We should get a trailer for that in the next couple of months, but they didn't say exactly when it's going to release. Of course, I will do videos for whatever they wind up dropping. I believe the Star Wars Acolyte series is coming towards the end of the year. That'll be during a completely different part of the timeline. It's High Republic era. I don't know what their future plans are for High Republic stuff. Generally, right now, all the movie announcements they just made for like the Grogu movie, the Thrawn movie, is all Mandalorian stuff taking precedence first. But as far as I know, there haven't been any kind of movie announcements during the High Republic era. I think they're just kind of waiting to see how everybody responds to all the live-action stuff there. I've already done a Skeleton Crew trailer for all the footage they released earlier. Click here for all that, and click here for that brand new Ahsoka Season 2 teaser. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.